You're listening to the Chapter a Day Bible Study. I'm John Stange, and today we're in Genesis 30. Jacob has many sons, and his flocks increase. Genesis 30 is one of those chapters that pulls you right into the challenges of real family life. It's filled with longing, competition, frustration, and glimpses of grace that come through at just the right moments. And when you sit with this chapter for a while, you start to see something beautiful. God keeps working in the middle of human weakness. He keeps moving his promise forward, even when the people involved are struggling to trust him. And through all the complicated relationships and surprising moments, we begin to see hints of the Redeemer who will one day come from this very family line. The chapter opens with Rachel's raw and painful cry. She watches her sister Leah bear children, and her own arms are still empty. So she turns to Jacob in verse 1, and she says this, "Give me children, or I shall die." You can almost hear the tension in the house. Jacob responds in anger, and Rachel decides to take matters into her own hands. She gives her servant Bilhah to Jacob, hoping that this will build her family. And when Bilhah bears a son, Rachel names him Dan. She says, "God has judged me and has also heard my voice and given me a son." We see that in verse 6. Soon after, Bilhah has another son, and Rachel names him Naphtali. Then Leah, realizing she isn't bearing children anymore, gives her servant Zilpah to Jacob. Zilpah gives birth to Gad and Asher. It's almost dizzying to watch this unfold. 4 women, 1 husband, and a deep desire from each woman to feel seen, valued, and blessed. You start to feel the ache that sits under every decision they're making. Each son's name carries a story, a moment of pain or hope, a little snapshot of their heart's condition. But then comes the memorable scene with the mandrakes. Reuben finds them in the field and brings them to Leah. Rachel wants them, believing that they may help her conceive. Leah responds with a mix of hurt and frustration. "Is it a small matter that you've taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?" She says that in verse 15. But they strike a deal, and that night Leah conceives again. She eventually gives birth to Issachar and Zebulun, and later to a daughter, Dinah. Through all this, you can sense the tension rising and falling like waves. Everyone wants something they don't have. Everyone's afraid of being forgotten. Everyone's trying to secure their future through the means available to them, and still, God remains faithful. He keeps giving gifts they didn't earn and couldn't guarantee. But after years of longing, the chapter takes a very meaningful turn. In verse 22, we're told, "Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb." Rachel gives birth to Joseph, and we're told that her joy starts to overflow. She says it this way in verse 23, "God has taken away my reproach." It's a quiet reminder that God sees us even when we feel invisible, and he hears us even when we feel ignored. He works in ways that surprise us, often when we're at the end of ourselves. And here, Joseph's birth becomes a pivotal moment in the story. Not only is he a personal gift to Rachel, but he's the child who will later save his entire family from famine. He'll become a picture of what God intends to do through Christ. Joseph will one day be betrayed by his brothers and handed over and eventually raised to a place of authority. And through him, many lives will be saved, millions of people. His life gives us a preview of a greater deliverer who will come through this same family, but with a rescue plan far deeper than anyone could imagine. After Joseph's birth, Jacob decides it's time to return home. Laban tries to keep him, knowing that God has blessed him because of Jacob. Jacob and Laban agree on a new arrangement. Jacob will keep the speckled and spotted animals, and Laban will take the rest. And at first, it seems like Laban's getting the better deal, but God has other plans. Jacob uses a creative strategy in managing the flocks, but the text makes it clear that God's the one steering the outcome. The chapter closes by saying, "The man increased greatly and had large flocks, female servants and male servants and camels and donkeys. We see that in verse 43. God keeps his promise, even when the journey is complicated and unpredictable. If you zoom out a little, the whole chapter becomes a reminder of God's patient commitment to his people. He doesn't abandon them because of their mistakes. He doesn't withdraw from them when they try to control things on their own. He keeps walking with them. He keeps fulfilling his promises. And through their very messy story, he's setting the stage for the birth of Jesus, the perfect Son, who will enter the world through this fragile family line. Genesis 30 helps us see that God's grace runs deeper than human striving. It shows us that he brings life where there's been barrenness. He brings blessing where there's been heartbreak. He brings redemption where there's been conflict and fear. This chapter invites us to rest in the faithfulness of God who keeps his word, and to look to Jesus, the Redeemer, who brings lasting hope, lasting peace, and perfect restoration. Thanks again for listening to today's episode of the Chapter a Day Bible Study. For more resources to help you in your walk with Christ and your understanding of the Bible, please visit my website at BibleStudyHeadquarters.com. And if you'd like to partner with me by becoming a supporter of this ministry, you'll see a few options to do so, again, at BibleStudyHeadquarters.com or in the description of this episode. As always, thank you for your prayers, thank you for your support, and thank you for your willingness to share this content with others. Have a great day, and I'll see you again right here tomorrow.